Ethan Cross never believed in second chances. To the world, he was a ruthless millionaire CEO, brilliant in the boardroom, cold in his heart. But that morning, when he walked into the hospital to finalize a business merger, everything changed. The meeting room smelled of coffee, steel, and sterilized air until one name on a patient chart froze him in place. Emily Cross, his ex-wife, the woman he had walked away from 3 years ago. Moments later, he stood outside the ICU, staring at the motionless figure hooked to machines, the same woman who once lit up his world. The beeping monitor echoed louder than his heartbeat. And for the first time in years, Ethan, the man who could buy everything, realized there was one thing he might have already lost forever. The boardroom at St. Clair Hospital was sleek, cold, and impersonal, a place where lives turned into numbers and hearts into contracts. Ethan Cross adjusted his tie as he walked in, the sound of his Italian shoes echoing across the polished floor. The CEO of CrossMed Holdings didn't flinch under pressure. Not in mergers, not in lawsuits, not in anything. Today was supposed to be routine, a simple negotiation to acquire part of the hospital's research wing, another empire to add to his name. But as he took his seat, he couldn't shake a strange feeling. The faint smell of antiseptic, the sound of distant machines beeping beyond the glass doors. It all felt too close to something he'd buried long ago. "Mr. Cross," said Dr. Patel, head of administration, sliding a file toward him, "we appreciate your donation and partnership in our new cardiac unit." Ethan nodded, flipping through the papers mechanically. He'd done this 100 times. But then halfway through a line of fine print, his pen stopped. Patient record authorization, Emily Cross. For a second, he thought it was a coincidence, just a name, but his chest tightened. The air around him changed. "Excuse me," he said, voice barely steady. "Who is Emily Cross?" Dr. Patel looked up, surprised. "You know her." Ethan's heartbeat pounded in his ears. "Answer the question." The doctor hesitated. "She was admitted 2 nights ago. Critical condition, ICU. She's the wife of one of our former donors, I believe." The words hit like a storm. Was former. Ethan pushed the papers aside, his composure shattering for the first time in years. He stood abruptly. "Which room, Mr. Cross?" "This isn't which room?" he demanded. The staff exchanged glances, startled by the sudden shift from calm corporate confidence to raw panic. Finally, Dr. Patel motioned toward the corridor. "ICU room 407. But I must warn you, her condition is..." Ethan didn't wait for the rest. He was already gone. The corridor stretched endlessly, white walls, sterile lights, and the faint scent of medicine. Every step brought back flashes of her, Emily laughing in their kitchen, her hands on his shoulders, her voice echoing, "You don't have to win every fight, Ethan." He had ignored her then. Business came first. Always he reached room 407 and stopped. Through the glass, he saw her. Emily, the woman he'd once promised to protect, lying motionless, pale, surrounded by machines that kept her alive. Her chest rose and fell in slow, mechanical rhythm. For a moment, the air left his lungs. He pressed his palm against the cold glass, his reflection merging with hers. "Emily," he whispered. A nurse nearby glanced at him. "Are you family?" His throat tightened. He wanted to say yes, but the word wouldn't come. He finally said. The nurse nodded sympathetically. "She's been unresponsive since last night. Accident on the freeway. Head trauma. We're doing everything we can." Ethan barely heard the words. His mind swirled with disbelief. Accident. Alone. Why hadn't anyone called him? Because, he realized, she couldn't. Because he was the one who walked away. He entered the room slowly, afraid that the sound of his footsteps might disturb the fragile stillness. Emily's hand lay limp against the sheet, the faintest pulse showing beneath her wristband. He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. Cold, fragile, yet still hers. He sat beside her, staring at the monitors. For a man who had conquered boardrooms and brokered billion-dollar deals, he suddenly felt powerless. "Hey," he whispered, voice trembling. "It's me. Ethan." "Nothing." He tried again, his tone breaking. "You'd probably tell me I'm late. You always said I'd show up when the damage was already done." Still silence. He closed his eyes, remembering the night he'd left. The argument, the slammed door, her voice saying, "You don't know what love costs, Ethan." He didn't then. He did now. A soft sound broke the quiet, the nurse returning with medication. "You should rest, sir. She needs time." Ethan nodded absently, but his gaze never left Emily. "I'll wait," he murmured. "I'm not leaving again." Hours passed. The hospital lights dimmed into night. Ethan sat in that same chair, unmoving, watching every rise and fall of her chest, every flicker of the monitor. When the doctor came in to check her vitals, Ethan finally spoke. "Will she wake up?" Dr. Patel sighed softly. "Her brain activity is faint, but present. It's uncertain. Do whatever it takes," Ethan said immediately. "Money, specialists, equipment, I don't care what it costs." The doctor hesitated. "Mr. Cross, with all due respect, this isn't just about funding. Sometimes, recovery depends on." "Then give her a reason," Ethan interrupted sharply. "I don't care how, just give her a reason to come back." The doctor looked at him carefully. Maybe hearing a familiar voice could help. Sometimes, they do respond. Ethan nodded slowly. "Then I'll stay. I'll talk until she hears me." As the doctor left, Ethan leaned closer to her ear. His voice cracked. "I know you can't hear me, Emily, but I'm here now. I should have said it sooner. I should have said it every day." He took a trembling breath. "I love you. And I'm not leaving this time, not until you open your eyes." The machines beeped softly in rhythm, steady, fragile, alive. Outside, dawn began to rise again. The second sunrise since she'd been brought here, and this time, Ethan didn't walk away from it. The next morning, Ethan hadn't moved. He was still in the same chair, tie loosened, his eyes red but determined. The rhythmic beeping of the machines had become his heartbeat, steady, fragile, and terrifyingly important. Every few minutes, he'd whisper her name. "Emily, it's morning again." He talked about anything: the sunrise through the glass, the city beyond the hospital, the coffee that had gone cold on the table. He just wanted her to hear his voice, to feel something real. When the door opened, he didn't even look up. "Mr. Cross," came a soft voice. It was Dr. Patel again. "There's something you need to know." Ethan turned, his jaw tightening. "If it's about her condition, it's about how she ended up here," the doctor said gently. Ethan frowned. "The report said freeway accident." Dr. Patel hesitated, glancing at the file in his hand. "Technically, yes, but it wasn't a simple crash. She was on her way to deliver a speech, a charity fundraiser for underprivileged patients. It was your company's hospital division she was representing." Ethan froze. "My company." She'd been volunteering for months. Patel continued. "Even after the divorce, she kept your last name on the donor list, not for herself, but for the children your foundation treated." Ethan's throat went dry. She'd kept his name, not as a memory, but as a bridge, a quiet link to something good they'd built before pride tore them apart. "She was hit by a delivery van on her way here," the doctor added quietly. "Her speech papers were found in the wreck. She wrote something about forgiveness in the notes." Ethan leaned forward, the words hitting him like a blow. Forgiveness, the one thing she'd given freely to everyone but him. He spent the rest of the day staring at those papers, creased, smudged with blood, yet still legible. Lines of her handwriting looped softly across the page. "People think healing comes from medicine, but sometimes, it starts with being seen, truly seen by the person who once walked away." He read that line again and again until the letters blurred. Tears burned his eyes, but he didn't wipe them away. For years, Ethan had buried himself in skyscrapers and board meetings, convincing himself success could fill the silence she left behind. But here, surrounded by the sterile hum of machines, success meant nothing. He looked at her, the woman who used to hum while making coffee, who painted flowers on their balcony even when the city air turned gray, the woman who'd once told him, "Love isn't measured by time, Ethan, it's measured by presence." And he hadn't been present at all. That night, the nurse on duty entered quietly. "Mr. Cross, you've been here almost 2 days. You should rest." He shook his head. "I can't." She smiled faintly. "You're not the first husband who's tried to bargain with the machines." He managed a sad smile. "Did they ever wake up?" "Some did," she said softly, "usually when someone gave them a reason to." After she left, Ethan turned back to Emily. "I know you can hear me," he whispered. "You were right, Emily, about everything." He ran his hand through his hair, voice trembling. "I thought love was control, that if I worked hard enough, made enough, we'd never break. But I built walls, not homes." He swallowed hard. "When you left, I called it freedom, but it was just punishment I gave myself." He leaned closer. "So if you wake up, I swear I'll tear every wall down, every one." His voice cracked on the last word, echoing faintly against the machines. Around 3 a.m., something changed. The steady beep faltered, not in danger, but subtly different. Her hand twitched. Ethan jolted upright. "Emily, The nurse rushed in, eyes wide. She moved. Yes, just now. Her fingers. The nurse checked the monitor, then nodded quickly. Her vitals are improving. Slightly. Ethan exhaled, gripping her hand tighter. That's it. That's you. Come on, Em. One more step. Minutes passed. The faintest tremor of breath escaped her lips. Tears spilled down his face as he whispered, "You're still fighting. You always did." By sunrise, Ethan had made a decision. He stepped outside the ICU for the first time. Calling his assistant. "Cancel the board meeting," he ordered. "Sir, today's acquisition is cancel everything, and schedule a press statement." "About what?" Ethan's voice steadied with quiet conviction. "The merger's off. I'm redirecting the funds. The new Cross Foundation will focus on patient recovery programs, not profits." There was stunned silence on the line. "Sir, that's a complete reversal." Ethan looked back at the ICU door, where Emily lay fighting for her next breath. "I know," he said softly. "It's the first decision that feels right." Later that morning, the doctor returned. "Her brain activity is stabilizing. She's not awake yet, but she's responding." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then I'll keep talking." He sat again by her bed, his voice gentler this time, no longer a CEO's command, but a man's confession. "Remember that cabin in Vermont?" he murmured. "You said the snow made everything quiet enough to hear the truth. I didn't understand then." He exhaled shakily. "But I hear it now, and it's this. I can't fix what I broke, but I can love what's left." A single tear slipped from the corner of her closed eye. The nurse saw it too, her breath catching softly. Ethan froze. Then, in disbelief, whispered Emily, her lips parted slightly, her voice barely a breath. "Ethan." It was weak, faint, but it was her. He clasped her hand, trembling. "I'm here. I'm right here." Her fingers tightened around his. Just a little, but enough to break him completely. Outside the ice, the hospital staff paused as they watched the billionaire who once ruled cities fall to his knees beside the woman he almost lost. And for the first time in years, Ethan Cross wasn't negotiating. He was praying. The room was quiet except for the hum of machines and Ethan's soft breathing. Emily was awake, fragile, pale, and surrounded by wires, but awake. Ethan hadn't left her side since she opened her eyes. The boardroom deals, phone calls, empire, all of it could wait. Nothing mattered more than the woman in front of him. She blinked slowly, trying to focus. You shouldn't be here," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Then you don't know me as well as you used to. I don't take orders easily." A soft laugh escaped her lips. Weak but real, still stubborn. "And you're still beautiful," he said quietly. Her eyes softened, then darkened with pain. "Why are you here, Ethan?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because I should have never let you go." For a moment, she looked away, her gaze fixed on the ceiling. 3 years, Ethan. 3 years of silence. "Why now?" "Because I didn't know what losing you felt like until I almost lost you for good," he said. "I walked into that hospital boardroom ready to sign another deal, and instead, I found the only thing that ever mattered." She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You always say the right things when it's too late." He reached for her hand. "Then let me say them while I still can." The nurse entered quietly, adjusting the IV. "Ms. Cross needs rest," she said softly. Ethan nodded, but Emily held onto his hand. "It's okay, just a minute." When they were alone again, Ethan leaned closer. "You were on your way to a fundraiser. Why didn't you tell me you were still doing charity work for my hospitals?" Her lips curved faintly. "Because it wasn't your hospital anymore. It was theirs, the patients, the nurses. You built something powerful, Ethan, but you forgot who it was for." He looked down, ashamed. "You're right, I built an empire, and lost my home in the process." Her eyes softened. "Do you remember our last fight?" He nodded. "You said I was married to my work. And you said love doesn't pay bills." They both smiled faintly, bittersweet. "Turns out," she whispered, "neither of us was completely right, or wrong." Hours passed. The light shifted from morning gold to hospital gray. Ethan sat by her bed, reading the notes from her fundraiser speech, the ones she never got to deliver. One line stood out, underlined twice in her handwriting. "Some people save lives with money, others save souls with forgiveness." He looked at her. "You wrote this." She smiled weakly. "I was going to end the speech with it. I guess fate decided to give me a more dramatic stage." Ethan chuckled through tears. Always had a flair for the dramatic. Then her tone shifted, quiet, hesitant. "There's something else you need to know." He froze. "What is it?" She hesitated. "The accident wasn't entirely random?" His heart stopped. What do you mean? I'd been getting dizzy spells for weeks. I ignored them. The doctors warned me I was pushing myself too hard, but I needed to finish the charity drive. It was for a patient who needed a rare transplant. I thought if I could just raise enough. Her voice trembled. I passed out behind the wheel. Ethan's chest tightened. Emily, I know. She whispered. Stupid. But I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want pity. Not from you. Not from anyone. He took her hand again. You nearly died because you were still trying to help others. And I was too busy counting profits. Tears welled in her eyes. We both made mistakes, Ethan. Maybe this was fate's way of stopping us long enough to remember who we used to be. That night, Emily's condition stabilized enough for her to move to a private recovery room. Ethan personally oversaw the transfer, refusing to leave even when the doctors insisted. The next morning, when she woke, sunlight streamed through the blinds. He was sitting by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled, signing documents. What are you doing? She asked weakly. Transferring 50% of my shares into the Cross Foundation. He said, it's yours now. Her eyes widened. What? No, Ethan. He looked at her, eyes raw. You built the soul of this company. I just built the walls. You should decide where the light goes. She stared at him, tears shimmering. You're serious? He nodded. Completely. Later that day, Dr. Patel entered with a smile. Ms. Cross, your recovery is remarkable. You're a fighter. She always was, Ethan said softly. Patel looked at him. You know, Mr. Cross, the staff here are calling you a miracle husband. Ethan laughed quietly. That's generous. I'm just a man who finally learned what's worth fighting for. The doctor left, leaving them in silence again. Emily watched him for a long time. You changed. He nodded. You made me. She smiled faintly. Then maybe we both get a second chance. He took her hand again. No more machines. No more walls. Just two hearts learning to beat in rhythm again. That night, before leaving, he whispered something she'd waited years to hear. Tomorrow, I'll be back. Not as the CEO. Not as the man who failed you, but as the one who finally understands love. Her eyes glistened. I'll hold you to that. He smiled. You always did. As he walked out, the hallway lights reflected off the glass, his own reflection staring back. Softer, humbled, human. For the first time in years, Ethan Cross didn't see power or profit. He saw purpose. And somewhere inside, he knew. This wasn't the end. It was their quiet, hard-won beginning. 3 weeks later, the hospital felt different. The machines that once echoed in Ethan's ears had been replaced by laughter from the children's wing. The one Emily had dreamed of expanding. Ethan walked through the hallways. Not in his tailored suit, but in a plain shirt and rolled sleeves. Clipboard in hand, following the medical director's updates. Mr. Cross, a nurse greeted with surprise. You're here again. He smiled. Just Ethan, please. I'm checking the new patient wing. He stopped near a small room where a boy, no older than 7, was painting with his left hand, his right arm in a sling. The boy looked up, grinning. Hey, you're the guy from the poster. Ethan chuckled. I guess I am. My mom says you built this place. The boy said proudly. Thank you. Ethan knelt beside him. No, buddy, you built it. I just gave it walls. The boy beamed and Ethan felt a warmth he hadn't known in years. Later that afternoon, the Cross Foundation held a press event in the hospital boardroom, the same room where it all began. Reporters filled the seats, cameras flashing, eager for a story. The once untouchable billionaire was standing before them again, but not as they remembered him. His voice was calm, sincere, stripped of corporate armor. 3 weeks ago, he began. I came here for a business meeting. I left as a different man. He paused, scanning the crowd. For years, I believed success was about control. That building the biggest tower meant you'd conquered the world. But the truth is, the higher you climb, the lonelier it gets. The room fell silent. Someone once told me, he continued, voice thick with emotion. That healing starts when you're truly seen. I didn't understand those words until I saw her, my ex-wife, lying in a hospital bed, fighting for her life while still helping others. He exhaled slowly. Her strength reminded me what this company was supposed to be. Not a monument to me, but a lifeline for those who need it most. He turned toward Emily, who sat in a wheelchair near the front, recovering but radiant, wrapped in soft sunlight. Her eyes met his proud, steady, forgiving. That's why today, Ethan said, I'm signing over controlling ownership of Cross Medical Holdings to the Cross Foundation. From now on, it belongs to the people, to every patient who walks through these doors. Gasps filled the room. Flashbulbs exploded. A reporter called out, "Mr. Cross, you're giving away billions." He smiled faintly. "You can't give away what never really belonged to you." Emily's eyes welled with tears as the audience broke into quiet applause. After the press conference, Emily was wheeled into the garden, her first time outside since the accident. The air was cool, the smell of jasmine in bloom. Ethan followed, a step behind, uncertain. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "I did," he replied. "It's the only apology that meant anything." She turned her face toward the sky. "You always tried to fix things with money." He smiled. "This time, I'm fixing things with meaning." She looked at him for a long moment. "Do you know what I prayed for when I was lying in that ICU?" He shook his head. "That if I ever woke up," she whispered, "you'd finally find peace, even if it wasn't with me." Ethan's throat tightened. "You did both, Emily. You woke up, and you gave me peace." She smiled, the kind of smile that had once turned silence into sunlight. "Then maybe we both got our miracle." As evening fell, Ethan pushed her wheelchair through the garden paths. She stopped near a small stone fountain, the one she'd designed years ago, before the divorce. "Do you remember?" she asked. "You said this fountain was a waste of money." He laughed. "Yeah. You said it was a place for wishes." And he leaned down, plucking a coin from his pocket. "Then let's test if it still works." He handed it to her. She held it for a moment, eyes shimmering. "What should I wish for?" He smiled softly. "For something real." She tossed the coin, and for a brief second, time stood still. The water sparkled under the lights, and her reflection danced beside his. That night, as they sat beneath the stars, Ethan finally spoke the words he'd kept buried for years. "I never stopped loving you." Emily looked up, her voice trembling. "Then why did you let me walk away?" He exhaled. "Because I didn't know how to love you right. I thought giving you the world meant I'd earned your heart. But I never realized you were my world." Tears filled her eyes. "And now, he whispered, taking her hand, "I'm ready to build a life, not an empire." The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was full of forgiveness, of second chances, of everything they'd lost and found again. 2 months later, the hospital unveiled a new wing, the Emily Cross Rehabilitation Center. Ethan didn't give a speech. He just stood beside her, watching as children in wheelchairs cut the ribbon with bright red scissors. Emily looked up at him and smiled. "You built this for me." He shook his head. "No, because of you." And for the first time since the day they met, Ethan Cross didn't feel powerful. He felt whole. 2 months later, the Cross Rehabilitation Center was alive with color and hope. Children painted murals. Nurses laughed. And Emily, now walking slowly with the help of a cane, was the soul of it all. Every corner carried her touch, her laughter, her kindness. Ethan watched her from his office window one afternoon. She was kneeling beside a little girl, helping her draw. He smiled. She was light, and for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of losing it. Until the call came. "Mr. Cross." A nurse gasped through the phone. "It's Emily." She collapsed. Ethan's world stopped. The pen fell from his hand as he ran through the corridors. The same halls that once echoed with business meetings now roared with the sound of his heartbeat. When he reached her room, she was unconscious again. Monitors beeped frantically. Dr. Patel turned. "It's her heart. A post-surgical complication we didn't see. We're stabilizing her." "But," Ethan's voice cracked. "But what? She might not make it through the night." Hours blurred into eternity. Ethan sat beside her bed, hands trembling as he held hers. "You promised," he whispered. "You promised we'd get our miracle." He placed his forehead against her hand. "I gave up my empire, Emily. But I'll give up the rest of my life if it means one more day with you." The nurse watched quietly from the door as the billionaire, who once ruled the city, fell apart. Beside the woman who had once simply asked for his time. As midnight neared, the monitors slowed. The air grew heavy. Ethan looked up at the ceiling, eyes burning. "If there's anyone listening," he whispered, "take everything, every dollar, every deal, just let her stay." Then, faintly, a soft sound broke the silence. A whisper. "Ethan." He looked down in shock. Emily's lips moved. Her eyes fluttered open. "You're crying." He laughed through tears. "Of course I am. You scared me to death." She smiled weakly. "You used to say emotions were bad for business." He leaned closer, pressing her hand against his chest. "Then I'm done with business." By morning, her condition stabilized again. The doctors called it a miracle recovery. Ethan called it grace. For the first time, he didn't feel like he'd earned it, just that he'd been forgiven. When Emily woke fully, the first thing she saw was a single folded paper on her bedside. Her hand trembled as she opened it. It was a legal document. Marriage dissolution, withdrawal, filed and voided. Her eyes filled with tears. "You withdrew the divorce." He nodded softly. "Months ago. I didn't want to tell you until you were ready to choose for yourself." She looked at him for a long moment. "And if I said no?" He smiled. "Then I'd still show up every day until you said yes, or until you told me to stop." Her voice shook. "And if I never did?" He brushed her hair gently back. "Then I'd spend the rest of my life loving you anyway." Weeks passed. Emily recovered fully, and the Cross Rehabilitation Center became one of the most visited wings in the city. But the biggest surprise came on the day of the dedication ceremony. Ethan stood beside her as she gave a short speech to the crowd. "I once believed healing was something doctors did," she said, "but now I know healing begins when someone refuses to give up on you." Her voice trembled. "Ethan didn't just save me. He remembered me." The crowd stood and applauded, but Ethan didn't hear them. He was too lost in her eyes, the same eyes that had seen both the best and worst of him, and loved him anyway. That night, they walked through the empty halls of the hospital together, hand in hand. "You know," she whispered, "you could have walked away again." He looked at her, voice steady. "I did once. I'll never do it again." They stopped outside her old ICU room, the one where everything had changed. She smiled faintly. "This place started our second chance." He nodded. "Then maybe it should witness our beginning too." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and opened it. Her breath caught. It wasn't the same ring as before. It was simpler, elegant, human, real. "Emily Cross," he said softly, "you gave me life twice. Once when you loved me, and again when you forgave me. Will you marry me again?" Tears fell silently down her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, Ethan, always yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. And for the first time, the beeping of the monitors in the room wasn't a sound of fear. It was the rhythm of two hearts finding their way home. Epilogue. Months later, the Cross Rehabilitation Center flourished. The sign outside read, "Built with love." For love, Ethan and Emily visited every week, not as CEO and patient, but as partners, building something together again. Sometimes, the staff would see them sitting quietly by the fountain, their hands intertwined, watching the children play. He no longer wore suits every day. She no longer walked alone. And somewhere in the gentle hum of life and laughter, the world finally saw what real success looked like: a love that refused to die, even when everything else had. Sometimes, love doesn't end when the papers are signed. It ends when one heart stops fighting. Ethan thought he'd lost everything when he filed for divorce. But fate brought him face to face with the woman he once called his world, lying helpless on life support. One signature ended their marriage. Another would save her life. In a world of power, pride, and second chances, this story reminds us that no amount of success can replace the heartbeat that once made you feel alive. Watch till the end, because sometimes the most powerful love story isn't about falling in love. It's about staying when everyone else would walk away. #Billionaire love story. #emotional drama. #hospital twist. #second chance love. #heartbreaking romance. #must watch.